Chapter 16. 2 days after being permanently set free from his sling, Justice gets to drive his brand new car. Ken Murray, owner of 7 Honda dealerships across the city, is the father of one of Justice's classmates, and just found a Civic with "Condolences from the Murray Honda family" on the windshield the day he came home from the hospital. At first, he wanted to give it back. The idea of driving around in a free car from some rich white dude made him sick to his stomach considering what had happened. But after staring at it for weeks and rereading the "Neither of you young men deserved what happened" letter from Mr. Murray, just decided to accept the gift. It's been a month and a half since the shooting, but going to Manny's house now is no easier today than it would have been the day he learned Manny was gone. The Riverses invited Justice to dinner tonight to commemorate Garrett Tyson's indictment, but Just really isn't looking forward to being alone with them, especially not inside their house. The more he thinks about it, and he's been thinking about it a lot lately, it wasn't the house that felt like a second home to him. It was Manny. As he pulls into the driveway, Just instinctively heads toward door 3 of the 4-car garage. He can remember all the times he and Manny waited for it to rise before pulling inside, and his stomach crawls up into his throat. Before he can throw his car in reverse and get out of there, door 3 does rise, and Mr. Rivers motions for Justice to pull in. The spot is empty, of course. Range Rover's long gone. But there's no way Just can fill it. He puts his car in park in the driveway and climbs out. "Appreciate it, Mr. Julian, but I can't," he says. Manny's dad smiles sadly and looks over the space. "It's just so empty, you know. Come on in." When Just steps inside and the fragrance of chicken cacciatore assaults his senses, he's 100% sure he doesn't want to be here. He doesn't want to sit down at the antique oak table to eat from the special occasion dishes Dr. Rivers has taken from her china cabinet. He doesn't want to make small talk with his dead best friend's parents as they eat his favorite meal and not their son's. All of this is way too much, and he wants to leave and never come back. He steps into the dining room anyway. "Thank you for coming, sweetheart," Dr. Rivers says, pulling Just into what has to be the most emotion-filled hug he's ever experienced. He counts a full 17 seconds before she lets go. "Thanks for having me," he replies. "Go ahead and sit," Mr. Julian says. "I'll get you something to drink." Just does as he's instructed, and after a minute Mr. Julian comes to the table with 3 beverages, a glass of red wine for Dr. Rivers, a glass of iced tea for Justice, and a tumbler of what Just assumes is Jack Daniel's Single Barrel. That's the stuff Manny used to sneak into his flask, for himself. Just seeing it makes Just want to vomit. "So how you holding up, Justice?" Mr. Julian says once he's seated. "Back in school yet?" Just shakes his head. "Not quite. I move into the dorm on Sunday and start classes Monday." "I see." Dr. Rivers comes in holding an oval dish with 2 pot holders. She sets it on the table, and the chicken breasts and legs smothered in mushrooms and red sauce stare up at Justice. "You think you're ready?" she says. "Ready as I'll ever be, I guess," Just shrugs. "I'm caught up, but it's now or never if I want to graduate in May." She nods and heads back to the kitchen, returns with a dish full of jasmine rice with 3 chunks of butter melted into it. "Pass me your plate." Just complies. "We're really happy you came to join us tonight," Mr. Julian says. "Means a lot to us." Dr. Rivers hands Just his plate, loaded up with food he has no appetite for. "We're not expecting you to talk much," she says. "Just nice to have your presence is all." "Thank you. Yours too." A lie, but it seems the right thing to say. The 3 descend into silence as silverware clinks and scrapes against bone china and beverages slowly disappear from glasses. Justice is thankful for the lack of conversation. Manny's absence makes it almost impossible to breathe, let alone talk. Once they finish, Mr. Julian clears his throat. "So, Justice, we invited you here tonight for a few reasons," he begins. Justice picks up his glass and gulps down the rest of his tea. "The first, of course, is to memorialize the indictment," Mr. Julian goes on. "We won't dwell on it, but to us, and surely to you as well, it is something to commemorate." Dr. Rivers nods. "It's not a conviction, of course, but it's a start. Just a relief to know what happened is being treated as a crime." Just stares at the gilt edge around his plate. "Yeah," he says. "That is a relief." "Moving on," Dr. Rivers says. "The second reason I'm not sure if you remember Emmanuel's cousin, Quan Banks?" Justice's head jerks up. "He says you went to elementary school together. Is that correct?" "It is," Just says, "but I had no idea he and Manny were cousins until—" he pauses. "Until Quan got arrested." She nods. "Well, if you're willing, Quan would like to see you. You've been added to his visitation list." "Oh. Okay." Emmanuel's death hit him pretty hard. "You don't have to visit, of course." She and Mr. Julian do that married thing where they communicate with a glance. "But he says you're the only person he wants to talk to." "I see," though he really doesn't. "If you're interested, I'll give you the information before you leave." Jess doesn't know what to say. Quan wants to see him? Okay, sounds good. Another lie. For a minute no one speaks. Jess can feel Mr. Julian's gaze, but there's no way he can look at him. He's what Manny would have looked like if he'd gotten the chance to get older. "There's one more thing," Dr. Rivers' voice wavers. "Julian?" "Yeah, okay." Mr. Julian gets up from the table and walks over to the china cabinet, opens it and pulls out a black box. He sets it on the table in front of Justice. "We intended to give this to Emmanuel for his 18th birthday," he says. "I have no doubt he'd want you to have it under these circumstances, so we'd be honored if you'd receive it in his stead." Jess stares at the box, afraid to move, let alone touch it. Dr. Rivers clears her throat, and he lifts his head. She smiles, though there are tears in her eyes. "Go on." Jess takes the box off the table and lifts the hinged top. By some miracle, he manages not to drop the contents on the floor and run away screaming. It's a watch. A Heuer with a brown face and gold numbers on a black leather band. Jess doesn't know much about watches, but he's about 87% sure this one is vintage and worth more money than Mama's ever had in her bank account at once. He carefully removes it and flips it over. The inside of the band is stamped with the letters EJR. "My grandfather bought that watch in the 1940s, Mr. Julian says. His name, like Manny's, was Emmanuel Julian Rivers. It's been passed down to the eldest male for 2 generations now. We want you to have it." Jess is dumbfounded. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Dr. Rivers says. "Just knowing it's in your possession means a lot to us." Jess looks back and forth between Dr. and Mr. Rivers, who are both smiling but obviously waiting for some kind of response from him. His eyes drop to the watch, which puts a big-ass lump in his throat. There's no talking past it, so he does the only other thing that makes sense. He stretches out his wrist and puts it on. Chapter 17. The first thing Jess notices when he pulls into the visitor lot of the Fulton Regional Youth Detention Center is how much the building reminds him of a high school. It makes his stomach twist a little. Holding kids deemed menaces to society in a place that would be completely normal if not for the 12-foot barbed wire-topped fences seems like someone's bad idea of a joke. Like, "Oh, look at this nice-ass school. Ha, gotcha, lockdown, fool." After Justice puts the car in park, he takes a minute to look around, let it sink in that he's really here, that he's about to go inside a juvie and sit down with the guy who killed Castillo, the cop who profiled Jess and started him on this failure of a social experiment trying to be like Martin. He almost can't believe it. Once Jess started at Bross Prep, Quan and those other guys became nothing more than reminders of the life Jess wanted to escape. Quan never made fun of Jess the way the rest of them did, but still, hearing that Quan wanted to see him was a little suspect. But then he couldn't stop thinking about it. Suspicion finally gave way to curiosity, and here he is. The minute he steps inside the facility, the guard by the door gives him a once-over before pointing toward an area marked Visitors. Just is smacked with a sweat-inducing wave of discomfort. He leaves his ID and keys with the lady at check-in, and a second guard lifts his chin as Jess approaches the metal detector. "Damn, boy," he says, taking in Jess's button-down pressed khakis and loafers. "You cleaner than some of the lawyers that come up in here." Thanks. Who you here to see?" "Quan Banks." The guard nods. "Go on through," he says. "Show those boys what they could be like if they got they shit together. You hear me? She'll walk you down." He gestures to the check-in lady, now waiting for Justice to step into the long hallway. Jess follows her past a bunch of white-walled rooms, classrooms they look like, until they reach a large steel door with a tall rectangular window that Jess suspects is bulletproof. The room has maybe 6 or 7 young guys in orange jumpsuits inside with their visitors. As the lady punches a code into the keypad on the door, Jess spots Quan waiting for him. The door opens. Voices spill out into the hallway. Quan lifts his head. He and Jess meets eyes. A smile spreads into Quan's cheeks, and as it overtakes his entire face, Jess remembers the last time he saw it. The summer before 5th grade, when Quan beat Jess at Monopoly for the first time. Seeing Quan smile like that makes Jess even more nervous about being here. "Brainiac! Quan says, standing to greet Jess. So glad you made it, homie. Yeah, Jess peeks over his shoulder at the now shut exit door. It's been a while. Have a seat. Quan sits back down and Jess follows suit. Seeing the other kids in the jumpsuits talking to their visitors makes Jess anxious to leave, especially since the majority of the guys in the room look like him. It's depressing. So how you been, Justice? Quan asks. Jess scratches his head. Truthfully, I've seen better days, man. Real fucked up about Manny. Yeah, it is fucked up. Saying the words is like a weight lifting. 1 minute we're riding along and the next. Jess sighs and shakes his head. What about you, homie? You recovering all right and everything? Well, my arm is working again, if that's what you mean. Yo, when I saw that cop's face on the news... Quan stops talking. Nah, never mind. What about him, man? Quan looks Jess in the eye, then he leans closer, beckoning Jess to follow suit. You know that cop they say I popped? How could Justice forget? Yeah, I do, actually. That asshole who opened fire on you and Manny? He was Dude's partner. Jess almost falls off the chair. Castillo, he says? Tomas Castillo was Garrett Tyson's partner. Yep. How do you know that? Tyson was there the night you shot Castillo. Allegedly. Jess sits back in his chair and lets it all sink in. You good, dog? Quan says. Huh? You looking a little shook over there. Should Jess tell him? Nothing to lose, right? Jess takes a quick peek around and leans forward. Can I tell you something crazy? I'm listening. Well, like a week before Castillo died, Dude arrested my ass. My girl was drunk and I was trying to get her home, but he thought I was carjacking her. Put me in cuffs and wouldn't let me say a word. So the motherfucker got his just desserts. Quan cracks his knuckles. Justice takes in Quan's tough guy expression and orange jumpsuit as the power of his words and seeming lack of remorse settle into Jess's bones. Jess leans forward again. Tell me why you did it, dog. Quan's features harden. Why I did what? Quan, I know you confessed. You don't have to act innocent with me. I don't know what you're talking about, man. Quan crosses his arms. All right, then. Different approach. Okay, new question. Why would someone do what you're accused of doing? Quan shrugs. If that's what someone's told to do, they do it. Who would tell someone to do that, though? Quan turns away and Jess can see he's about to lose him again. But Jess really needs to know because now there's a new question on the table. Who's to say Garrett Tyson's quickness to pull the trigger wasn't caused by seeing his partner killed by a black kid? It's no excuse, of course, but Jess knows the effects of trauma are real. He watched his dad lash out at his mom for years. Wait, forget that who would tell question. I just really need to understand, Quan. I got shot and Manny's dead because Garrett Tyson thought I had a gun. Now you're telling me he was there when when his partner got shot. Quan's eyes narrow. What you trying to say, man? I'm not trying to say anything, Quan. Just put yourself in my shoes. All of this shit is foreign to me. For a minute, nobody says anything, and Jess is sure his coming here was a mistake, but then Quan starts talking. Alright, listen up. Where I come from, resistance is existence, homie. Every day I woke up in my hood could have been my last. You want to survive? Get with some guys who won't turn on you, and y'all do whatever it takes to stay at the top, you feel me? My dudes, they're like family to me. They've got my back as long as I have theirs. Somebody tells me to make a move, you make a move. No questions asked. Jess shakes his head. Not buying it, dog. Don't forget I grew up right around the corner from you. Last I checked, your way got you capped and Manny killed, Quan says. Jess can't really respond to that. I know you all about getting ahead and everything, Justice, but you really gotta face reality at some point. These white people don't got no respect for us, dog. Especially the cops. All they protect and serve is their own interests. You just gonna continue to bend your knee after they proved that you killed that shit by killing your best friend? Again, Jess has nothing. Can't even say I was surprised when I heard, man. Quan continues. You and Manny were good dudes, and y'all still got a raw-ass deal. That's why I wanted to see you. Talk. I got a counselor here, but I can't tell that white lady none of this shit. She won't get it. Jess nods. You know what, Quan? I feel ya. And he really does. It's fucked up. There's no escaping the BMC, Quan says. The BMC? Yeah. Black man's curse. World's got diarrhea and dudes like us are the toilet. Guess that's one way to put it. Let me tell you when I learned. My second time in juvie, I was 14. There was the 17-year-old rich white boy there, Sean. Dude had got up in the middle of the night and stabbed his dad like 8 times. Damn. Right? They tried to get him on an attempted murder charge, but somebody's lawyer got some doctor to come in and say dude was sleepwalking. And the shit worked. Judge dropped the charge down to simple assault. Guy got 60 days at a youth development campus, then got to go home. You serious? Yep. Meanwhile, they locked my ass up for a year on a petty